Today, we're diving into a really high-stakes balancing act that's happening right now in the Philippines. It's a story about a super promising new industry that could, lift thousands of people up. But it also carries this hidden danger of a full-blown environmental catastrophe. And it all comes down to one little animal and a very ambitious plan to control it.
So just imagine for a second you're a farmer in the Philippines, and you suddenly learn about a new kind of cash crop. That's really the promise here with this new species for aquaculture. It's being seen as this high-value product, a chance to get a piece of a massive global market, and totally transform local economies. We're literally talking about a potential freshwater gold rush.
And look, this isn't just some grassroots idea. The government itself is throwing its weight behind this. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, you'll hear them called BFAR, they see this new crayfish industry as absolutely essential for food security and for economic growth. The official line is crystal clear. This is supposed to be a huge win for the country.
But here's the catch. Behind all that economic promise, there's a really serious threat lurking. What if the very thing that's supposed to create all this prosperity could end up destroying the natural environment that it all depends on? That's the huge conflict at the heart of what we're talking about today.
All right, so let's get into it and meet the star of our story. It's an animal that goes by a few different names, but it has one heck of a reputation.
Okay, so here it is, the Australian Redclaw Crayfish. You might hear it called crawfish, or even better for marketing, a freshwater lobster. And just like the name says, it's from Australia, not the Philippines. Its size, its taste, and the fact that it grows super fast, that makes it the perfect candidate for farming. You can totally see the appeal, right?
But that little detail, native to Australia, that's exactly where the problem starts. See, bringing a non-native species into a totally new environment is always a gamble. And in this case, the stakes are enormous. So what's the big deal? Why is everyone so worried about farming something that seems so promising? It looks harmless enough, but its biology, well, that tells a very, very different story.
And this is the absolute crucial point. After a formal environmental risk assessment, the Philippine government's own experts officially classified this crayfish as a highly invasive species. That's not just a friendly warning, that's a massive red flag.
Now, what does invasive species actually mean? Let's be really clear here. We're not just talking about a new animal making a new home. No, we are talking about an organism that, if it escapes into the wild, could completely outcompete native species for food and shelter, maybe even drive them to extinction, wrecking biodiversity and permanently changing rivers and lakes forever.
So here we are, with this classic high-stakes problem, a huge economic opportunity on one side and a massive ecological threat on the other. So how do you even begin to allow the first one without unleashing the second? Well, the government's answer is this, a new administrative circular from BFAR. You should think of it as the official playbook for how to farm a high-risk animal. It's this incredibly detailed attempt to thread a very, very fine needle to get all the economic benefits without triggering an ecological nightmare.
And this slide just captures that challenge perfectly. On one side, you have these powerful goals: boost the economy, improve food security, create jobs. But on the other side, you've got these non-negotiables. You have to protect native species and prevent permanent environmental damage. The entire regulation is basically an exercise in trying to do both of those things at the same time.
So how do they actually plan to do it? Well, the whole strategy really boils down to one core concept: absolute, verifiable containment. These crayfish have to be farmed under lock and key, with basically zero chance of ever escaping.
And this shows you the most important rule in action. Farming is only allowed in completely sealed-off, controlled environments. We're talking concrete tanks, fiberglass containers, systems where every single drop of water is managed. What's absolutely strictly forbidden? Open systems. Things like earthen ponds or cages set up in lakes. The message could not be clearer. These crayfish must never, ever touch natural waterways.
Okay, so what does this whole lock and key thing look like in practice? Let's open up the rulebook and take a look.
The rules for farmers are incredibly strict, and every single one has a very specific purpose. Getting accredited isn't just paperwork, it's all about accountability. That mandatory biosecurity plan, it forces farmers to think through every possible risk. To make sure everything is traceable and in a closed loop, the baby crayfish can only come from other accredited hatcheries. You can't even move them from one place to another without a special permit. Every single step is designed to be tracked and controlled.
And if you thought that was strict, the rules for actually
importing them are even tighter, because that's the point of highest risk for new diseases or different genetic types. It's this rigid, three-stage process of checks, before they leave their home country, at the border, and after they arrive. That includes a mandatory quarantine period, and this is crucial, only accredited hatcheries can even apply to import them, and only for breeding stock.
Of course, a rule book is only as strong as its enforcement. So what happens if someone decides to break these rules? And what's the plan for getting this new industry up and running?
Well, let's just say the penalties for breaking these rules are severe. Violations come with some really hefty fines, they'll confiscate all your stock, and there's even the potential for having your whole facility eradicated. For example, if you're caught farming without authorization, that could cost you up to 1 million pesos. The government is sending a very clear message. Biosecurity is not optional. For anyone who's already farming crayfish, there's a 1-year grace period. They have 1 year to register and get in line with all of these new requirements. It's a chance to bring the entire industry under this new, heavily regulated system. Which brings us right back to that huge final question. The Philippines has laid out one of the most comprehensive plans you can imagine to farm a high-risk species safely. The rules are there, the penalties are clear, and the potential reward is massive. But can a rulebook, no matter how detailed it is, truly contain nature? The success or failure of this whole ambitious plan is going to be a fascinating test case for aquaculture all around the world.